All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our first video with the Flipped Classroom content. So for today, what we're gonna do is I just have a whiteboard with our major points and major ideas. And I'm just gonna kind of walk us through here in about 5 minutes or less. Something that we would normally do in the classroom, but that you can do now on your own on video at home. So let's get started. Our first topic today, guys, is the election of 1800. Now, the election of 1800, what are we talking about? Well, we are talking about an election. And it's called the Revolution of 1800 in our notes and in our content. But what we're really talking about is an election between two guys, both you know of, John Adams, who is a Federalist, and Thomas Jefferson, who is going to be a Democratic Republican. Now, just a few refreshers. The John Adams, as a Federalist, he represents the wealthy, the educated, the top 10%, the people living in the cities who really see industry as the future of our country. And then there's Thomas Jefferson, who is really the middle class and the lower class champion. He represents the agricultural thought that agriculture is going to be the future of our nation, and that the rural community should be just as important as the urban community. Both very powerful, both have a significant following, and both are going to be serious contenders for the election. Now, when it comes to the election of 1800, the Revolution of 1800, there are really three main problems with it. Number one is the incredible accusations between these two gentlemen. For the first time in politics, we begin to see two politicians really go at each other. And it gets pretty ugly. John Adams, calls Jefferson an atheist because he believes in the separation of church and state. And Jefferson calls Adams kind of a debauchery of the rights that they're supposed to have under the Constitution, of course referencing the Alien and Sedition Acts that Adams had just passed. And so there's a lot of heat going on between these two guys. In fact, so much so that Jefferson and Adams are really going to lose their friendship over this election. It's going to be pretty sad. Second is the France and Britain relations and what to do with those two countries. As a Federalist, Adams is going to support the British. He very closely sees the British and the Americas kind of as aligned, and he models a lot of their government policies off of what they do. And Jefferson's going to support the French. He really sees the French as an ally. He lived there for many years, and he also sees the French Revolution kind of as an embodiment of the American Revolution, and so he wants to support them. And then the final problem, and the most important, is Aaron Burr. Now remember that name, okay? Aaron Burr is going to be chosen to be the vice president of Thomas Jefferson. Now, there's a problem with that. Aaron Burr is a Federalist. Dun, dun, dun. Now, why do you think Jefferson would choose to have a Federalist run as his vice president? Go ahead and answer that one for yourself. If you're thinking to attract more votes, you would be correct. You see, Aaron Burr is from New York, and New York is a swing state that the Democratic Republicans have to win the election. And so they think if they bring Aaron Burr on their ticket that they'll be able to do that. There's just one problem, and that's with how the Electoral College used to work, okay? In the old days, when they were selecting a president, the Electoral College would vote once for the president, Jefferson, Adams, and then they'd vote twice for the vice president, Aaron Burr, and the other running mate. Problem was in this election that some of the electorates got messed up. They got a little mixed up as to who to vote for, and wouldn't you know it, Aaron Burr and Thomas Jefferson came out in a tie. Now, what that meant, and what do we do with a tie? Well, we have a process for that, and when a presidential tie, the deciding vote then goes to Congress, okay? And Congress in 1800 was controlled by Federalists. So, a Federalist Congress now has to decide who they're going to vote in, Federalist Aaron Burr or Democratic Republican Jefferson. And as you can imagine, Jefferson's very frustrated. He feels he's going to lose the election when he beat the guy he was supposed to be beating in John Adams. However, Jefferson's most unlikely friend steps in, Alexander Hamilton. And Hamilton had a long-standing feud with Aaron Burr that we'll talk about more. And he despised Aaron Burr. And he actually decided that it would be better for Aaron Burr to not be president than it would be for Jefferson. And Hamilton, as the leader and spokesman for the party, swings all the Federalist votes in favor of Jefferson, and Jefferson wins the election. And that's why we call it a revolution, folks, because what we have is we have our government going from a Federalist-controlled government to a Democratic Republican. And that is the first peaceful transition of power our country ever experiences. And that's a big deal, all right? For one party to willingly get up and lead all that power is a very big deal for them. And so that's why we call it a revolution. A revolution implies change, which is very important. And that's about it. So the Revolution of 1800 is the process that Jefferson had to get elected, and that's all we got.